No, but for me personally, obviously, I think it's interesting. I came to China for the first time for my first job 30 years ago, and that was a result of reform and opening, because my company, the French energy group, was invited to provide technical assistance to build a nuclear power station in southern China. So I think reform and opening in China is part of my personal story, or my personal story is part of that reform and opening. I think a lot of foreign companies are now coming to China or developing in China to tap the innovation dividend of China, not to tap the low labor costs. That's part of the new China story. I think encouraging foreign business to do so would be very welcome and would attract quite some investment. But with a Chinese market that is increasingly differentiated from other markets, again because of its size, by new growth engines. Industrial modernization is one of them, because China wants to increase its GDP per capita, and that needs productivity. And productivity is not going to fall from the sky. Productivity is going to come from investment in added value production that will simply create more added value and therefore generate more income for companies and in turn for people. So that's the first thing. The second thing, there is a huge challenge in decarbonizing the Chinese economy. That's a China challenge, but that's a challenge for the world. Third one, maybe the first one for this year of recovery, is consumption. How to unleash the potential of consumption of China, which is, I mean, the consumption per inhabitant is sort of halfway through, or 60% of what it is in other developed countries. So, of course, taking an average for China may not be totally relevant given the difference in income between, let's say, rural areas and large cities. But still, even if you take large cities, it's below. So how do you unleash those savings? How do you unleash this income that could be available for further consumption? I think is one of the challenges for policymakers down the road. That's a new China story. I think China has and will keep a very central role in global supply chain. It's been very resilient through the COVID period. If you look at Chinese exports, if you compare 21 with 2019, it's up more than 30%. It's not by chance, it's simply because Chinese manufacturing footprint was there to meet the surge in demand post-COVID or at the end of the COVID pandemic in Europe or in the US, at the time when the European or American production fleet was crippled still by COVID. So, and I mean, companies remember it. The quality of the industrial clusters, the depth of the industrial clusters, the flexibility, the ability to quickly put a lot of people to work to launch a new product in consumer electronics is pretty obvious. That cannot be replaced very easily. So part of it may be diversified elsewhere, because that's a learning from the COVID pandemic, that you cannot rely on only one source of supply. China is very competitive. One thing that also happened in the last 2 years is massive investment in robotics, in automation, in digitization of manufacturing. And as a result, the Chinese production cluster is not only bigger, it's also more competitive. It's also more productive. Back to my point on productivity and industrial modernization. I think we have a slow but steady recovery, and I think it's probably better this way because it's most likely sustainable. So that's what we observe from our clients, that business is recovering. So I think China has a sort of a movement of its own, yet it's also influenced by the rest of the world. I mean, 20% of the Chinese economy is dependent on exports, and with a slow global economy, that might suffer. We've seen it already in the first 2 months, but China has also enough of its own strengths and fundamentals to recover, slow and steady.